Good morning.
Good morning.
Unless you change and become like a child, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. I was so touched yesterday when Charlie's older sister, Linda, was giving her talk during the time of the eulogy for his celebration of life. And she said something that stuck. And that was that there's something very unique and special about growing up with somebody. Remember when she said that? Mm-hmm. She said there's a bond there that we have many bonds in life that are incredibly precious, but there's nothing quite like when you grow up with somebody as a child. You really feel them. You interact with them. You know them. You know their innocence and your innocence, and you dance. You share things together that are magic. And it really did touch my heart, the way she said it and that she meant it. And so this perfectly fits with the theme this Lent, as we must open our hearts and we must let ourselves remember and be guided by those childlike feelings that are innocent and fun and spontaneous and playful. We must access those places to enter into the kingdom of heaven. So I think about, now I'm going to do a Ron Brugler, because Reverend Ron Brugler always told stories about something from his life. And so in the spirit of Ron, I'm going to tell you a few memories in my childhood that I access when I lose myself. And one of them was making mud pies. I tell you that when I would go in the backyard in El Cerrito, I would go under these trees and I would collect mud and water and I'd put them in these bowls and I would mix. And I would add flowers from the trees, and I would put in little dead nuggets that fell from the trees, and I would find berries, and I would decorate my pies, and boy did they taste good. Nothing tastes, except for something, there is a pie that Mom makes. But no pie tastes as good as Mom's pie, but the mud pies were a close second. And they were so real to me. And not only were the mud pies so tasty, because in my own creative imagination, they were real. They were so real to me. I used to play for hours, either by myself or with a neighbor friend named Ananda. And I had these plastic animals. I had as many plastic animals as you could fit into a big bag. And each one of them had a name. And they would talk to each other. And I swear they were living. They were so alive. And how about, we lived on a hill in El Cerrito, and on the hill way above the houses were these grassy, dry grassy fields. And I would grab these cardboard slats with my brothers, and we would sled for hours down those hills. And it was absolutely, the only thing that made us even think to go home was Mom's voice, "Dinner's ready! I gotta eat!" Because when you're in that kind of ecstasy, when you're playing with abandon, and you're in a magic realm, you don't even think about eating. How many times do you have to tell yourself not to keep eating? But when you're in this magic place of childhood, it is heaven. You must change and become like a child to enter into the kingdom of God. The scriptures, when you read those scriptures, they just come alive and they mean so much more if you can have the childhood memories that make you feel young again. And before I go any further, does anything come to mind for you? Is there anything?
I didn't know that you had such a thing with mud pies, because I did that a lot.
You did?
Yeah. At my neighbor's house, though.
Oh yeah. And you bought me an imitation oven And I used to stick those mud pies in that imitation oven, and I would time when they were going to be done. And when they were done, they were beautiful. It was magic. And it was real. That's what the Lord is talking about. It's that feeling, that aliveness, that it makes everything more real than your adult mind, your cynical mind wants to make out of any situation. Don't let your adult, cynical ego mind destroy the magic. I wouldn't want to live in a world where there wasn't mystical experience. Because the mystical experience is what brings right that childhood beauty and magic and play and spontaneity. Don't lose it, because if you do, you lose the kingdom. Everything in that is your access. Anybody else? Mom has mud pies like me. Anybody else have a childhood experience? What did you do for play?
Played with my stuffed animals.
Yeah.
They were alive. I had no siblings, so to me they were my brothers and sisters. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I still sleep with them on my bed.
Aw, with Mia.
I grew up across the street from a park in Clawson, and that's where we were every day after school.
Oh, really?
You know, I mean, just even in the summer, we were there. They had a baseball field, ice rink in the winter. We were there every day. I mean, we didn't want to come in the house, you know, like you did, you said.
Yeah.
We just went over there and, okay, my dad's big boy, come on, kids. The neighbor moms would actually say, can you call my kids home too? Because my dad had such a deep booming voice, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, kids, get home. and if the kids would hear him, but that was fun, you know.
Yeah.
Magic and fun.
I'd hear Mom say, supper's ready, and I'd go, oh, Mom,
Yeah.
I want to keep playing.
Yeah.
Janine, did you raise
Yes. Well, we had a great neighborhood of kids, and unlike what's happening today, we were outside all the time. We
Yes.
would play statue until it got, you know, way into dark, and we'd play marbles. I had my own marbles, I had my own BB gun, my own
Little
candy
BB
BBs.
Wow.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. I was
Beautiful.
outside a lot.
Beautiful.
Kick
Yeah,
the
you
can,
love it.
did anybody play kick the
Oh,
can?
yeah.
And so when Joel sang the Candyman can,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how perfect that was for me, because when Mom and Dad would give us our allowance, my best friend and I, we would walk, I don't know, it must have been a mile, to Poloni's. And we would go and we'd spend all of our allowance on candy. And we would just sit and look at what we picked, and it was
Penny
like
candy.
gold. I mean, the candy was like gold. You couldn't have traded it for gold with me. I just loved the candy, and it was so fun. And you know, I'd get
Cheap.
lost, cheap? Yeah.
Penny candy.
Yeah, penny candies.
Yeah.
And you know,
Always
and
first
you
to
get
buy it.
lost, you know, how often do you even as an adult now, do you really taste your food?
Oh, when it's good chocolate, honey. Oh, I revel in it.
Yes, revel is a great word for this,
I do.
for this theme,
Yes.
revel.
Yeah.
You really lived. You really loved. You tasted life. And you were without care. And I hope and pray that you had the kind of childhood where you at least had some of those moments. Because as children, we were so close to heaven. We were so close and we didn't even know it. And it was the play and the creativity and the spontaneity and just the tasting of life, the stand by me moments. That was actually God. We didn't think of it like that. We thought maybe some of us were taught that God was in a religious church experience, which may be true too. I remember Mom and Dad's first church in El Cerrito, California. The stained glass and the potlucks and sliding along the floor on these big fluffy pillows. I mean, I had these memories when they would have candles lit in this beautiful Sweet Morgan church in El Cerrito. I tell you, everything of my ordination and my calling harkens back to that church and those experiences, that it wasn't anything that I particularly remember read, but it was a feeling of holiness and play. And that's why Sunday school teachers are so powerful. The kingdom of heaven is in the care of the Sunday school superintendent. Because if that person cares about the children, they feel it, and they experience heaven at that most innocent level. And so heaven is so close to us in our childhood. I mean, and really, and I'm going to say something now that I hope it hits for you. I hope it resonates for you. In our childhood, we experience the timelessness of the eternal realm. We got lost in the play, in the fun. We got lost in a magical kingdom inside of us, which is why the Magic Kingdom at Disney, you know? I feel totally like a kid again. I mean, I haven't been there in years, but I remember my brother Kit and I, we went after clergy meetings and we said, let's go blow off steam and go to the Magic Kingdom. And it was just, you just lose your adult thinking mind and you just have fun. So the spontaneity, all of this is what the Lord wants us and actually requires us to access. That's why it's so important that we remember and that we never stop playing, because it's required. It's not just a suggestion, folks. You must change and become like a child to enter the kingdom. Swedenborg invites us to consider that angels live in creative ecstasy. Whoa, that's a line. Angels live in that. They're constantly creating, and they're in a place of freedom and love and joy. And they feel the joy of another as their own joy. And do you remember when you sat with your friend after getting your candy after Halloween? And you go, I'll trade you this for that. Mm-hmm. I want that Snicker, and I'll give you 2 Toblerones. See? Yeah, I mean, you can just go back to that place that makes you feel young again. And it can sometimes be over something so seemingly insignificant, but there's a place in us where the angels live. And it's so important to do that. That's where we feel alive. We don't actually feel alive, and I love Swedenborg's theology for this. We don't actually feel alive through ritual. Ritual itself is not faith, but rather it's those alive places in us where the Lord can reach us. And so our childhood magic and memories and the innocence and the joy and the play that still live inside of us, we just must access that. It's an absolute requirement. We must access that place, and it can help us because it inspires us and it leads us. How many times, and I'd like you to see if you can guess, how many times in God's Word does the word remnant actually show itself? Any guesses? 10? 20? 50? 100? We read 300 times the word remnant. And Swedenborg invites us to look at the deeper spiritual meaning of the word remnant, which means the world of our childhood remains.
Childhood romance?
Remains.
Remains.
Yeah, remains. Yeah. Yeah.
It's still there.
Those things of our most innocent love of God in our early life that remain in us. That's the world of our childhood innocence. And that happens 300 times, that is mentioned, and how important that is to us. So as we close this reflection, I'd like you to continue with that reflection in your mind now as we continue with the offering. I've asked Joel to play during our time of offering Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And this is the song that if I could invite you to do 2 things while Joe shares this gift. In this song, I want you to just let yourself think about the childhood memories that give you life. But then I would invite you to take it one step further, to look for how the Lord was with you in your childhood. Look for Him. And if nothing comes, don't fear. It'll come. It may not come because if you're too worried about getting something, you block it. But if you just let yourself remember your childhood and see where the Lord was with you in that, as we continue with the offering and Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a line that I've heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. One day I'll wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops, way above the chimney tops. That's where you will find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. Why, little why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why?